enthusiasts, we are here for Interview with the Vampire, the movie. We have enjoyed so much talking about Interview with the Vampire, the series, that we decided to take it back a little bit, be a little bit nostalgic, if you will. So today we're going to be covering Interview with the Vampire, the movie, but we want to zoom in a little bit on two of our favorite people to complain about, Lestat de Leoncourt and Louis Dupont du Lac. All right, let's get into it. All right. So Elia loves the 90s. It's one of my favorite periods. So the movie was actually made in the 90s, about 1994. And so we have some of our favorite people. We have Tom Cruise, we have Christian Slater, and we have Brad Pitt. So today specifically we'll be talking more so about Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise's characters, Lestat and Louis. So let's dive into it. What is your initial reaction to Louis in the movie? What's your initial reaction to Louis?
Ooh, my initial reaction to Louis was, oh, well, you know what? Let me go back to 1994, 95 ish, Jermaine. Ooh, that Brad Pitt is sexy.
That's a reaction. That's a reaction.
I mean, that was it. But in terms of the character itself, Louis seemed to be, I don't know, like just in grief. A very normal reaction, probably over the top. I don't know if I would have reacted in the same way as him, but perhaps he's just so emotional of a being, of a soul. I mean, he is a Scorpio. So therefore, feelings are important to Scorpios, and so he gets so engulfed in his feelings. He lost his wife, he lost his child, all at the same time. So I definitely understand his feelings. It wasn't a feeling that I can relate to, but I definitely understood his feelings. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. He's emotional and in consistent Louis fashion in the book, in the movie, in the show. That has remained a constant, so I don't disagree. Britt, what are your thoughts, your initial reaction of Louis in the movie Interview with the Vampire?
Same as Jermaine. Damn, he's sexy. As a little girl, I was like, damn. Mm, mm. And I wanted to understand the character more, but I feel like the TV show, I like the way the TV show did the character better. In the movie, it was such a broad overview of sadness and grief and depression, but the TV show did it better justice of breaking it down for me. I feel like in the movie it was just like, oh, here's this sad person, and I understand why they're sad, but it didn't go into depth of why he was so sad.
Hmm. Hmm.
I agree. I agree completely with both of you. I definitely connected more with the character in the show versus the movie. But let me be very clear: this was one of my first movies that I fell in love with as it pertained to vampires. So watching the show and then watching the movie and then going back to the movie after the show, I'm looking at the movie a lot differently. I'm like, oh, normally this does not happen for me. I like to stick true to my roots. And I'm like, dang, I like the show better. But I still have to remember the time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I agree with both of you. Brad Pitt is just sex on a stick. Like you cannot help but lust after this man. And then this is 90s Brad Pitt. I
Yeah,
mean, listen, he's got it
yeah,
going on. I'm
yeah,
almost
yeah.
feeling like he should have been Lestat, you know, because of his appearance.
Originally he was supposed to be Lestat. He was supposed to be Lestat, but Anne Rice was like, "Nah, let's flip him." She wanted Brad Pitt to be Louis because remember Louis, his character is supposed to be just handsome, just beautiful. Lestat chose Louis because of how handsome he was. I mean, other reasons, but his handsomeness was important. And so I think what she wanted to do was she wanted to capture the fact that Louis was so handsome.
And he did that. He was just that. All
Yeah,
right. And
it was.
so, oh, another hey Nicole. All right. So, next question is, how does the bar scene paint Louis as reckless? And how should you view humans at this point? So we know that Louis has lost his wife, he's lost his child, and so he's in this deep state of despair, like we've already discussed. So, how does the bar scene paint Louis as reckless?
Mm, First, he was with a lady of the night.
Yes, a whore.
Then, when he was cheating, so he was with a lady of the night, could have got an STD. Then he was out there cheating in the card game, and he gonna open his shirt up like this, like, "Well, shoot me then, bitch. Shoot me, bitch. You want to shoot somebody? Shoot me, bitch." He was ready. He was ready to go.
Yes, he just wanted to die. He was trying to find any and all different types of situations in which he could die. Brittany said he could have got an STD. He whether it came fast or slow. He Lord Jesus.
Stay right there. Stay right there. Whether it came fast or slow.
The title of the episode.
He wanted it. He wanted it. He didn't care. And he it was almost like he could peep game. He knew that he was walking into bad situations. He didn't care. He just get it over with. Just get it over with. But he was unwilling to kill himself. He was unwilling to kill himself. He was okay with other people killing him, but he was unwilling to kill himself, which is why he put himself into these horrible situations. And if you think about it, like it's the same. It's the same character. It's the same character. Just they're doing it in different ways.
I loved watching the recklessness because it was so avant-garde. Like, you know what? Okay, do it. I love watching him pull the other man's whole card. Like, you're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it. And and then he still leave with a lady of the night, as we say, like, okay, whatever. So I appreciated watching it, even though it was still painful to watch, because it's like, okay, clearly this is a man in deep despair, deep grief, but he just does not care. But like Jermaine said, he refuses to kill himself, but he's not cautious when it comes to other people potentially killing him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a quote from Louis: "I had lost my wife and child." Is this what happens in the book?
Yes.
Is this what happens in the book?
Yes. 100%.
All right.
One hundred
So that
percent.
remains consistent. So I want to talk about Louis' consistent suffering, and this is within the realm of the movie, the book, the show. His consistent suffering, and just kind of want your thoughts and/or opinions about him just being a tortured soul.
Um, so in the show, they focused heavily on his brother. Now his brother was in the book as well. All right. So yeah, so his brother died, his wife died, his daughter died. Like it was deep for him, right? Um, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. What was so great about the show was how and why Claudia was made. Like his grief was manifest because unlike the book, the show could show a cause and effect as to how and why his grief caused him to then get Lestat to make Claudia. That was made plain to us, and you could put your finger on it. You didn't have to think about it. Whereas when you're watching the movie, it's like, okay, all right, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, Brittany. You look like you had thoughts.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, okay, I understand what's going on. Give me some more. All
Hmm.
right, what's next? Okay, you're sad. I understand you're sad. Okay, what else? All right, you're surrounded by death. This is how a person acts that's surrounded by death. Now you are death. All right, now what? And that's kind of what I got from it.
And
Hmm.
so, before we go any further, I do want to switch over to talking about Lestat a little bit because some of the other questions that we'll get into will relate to the Dark Gift. So, let's talk
Mhm.
about my favorite person in history, in life, in the vampire world. Let's say it.
Daddy on court.
Would you say De Leon Court? Baby Daddy De Leon Court. So, same kind of question. What are our initial thoughts about Lestat when we are introduced to him in this movie?
Okay, so when when I heard the term the original bad boy, I was like, he comes in killing. He comes in killing. Like that's his, and he has this thirst for death. That was the thing about that. That is what is made clear in this movie. Whereas in the television show, like you get to see a little bit of nuance. In the movie, it's like it hits you in the face. This man is death personified, right? And he revels in it. He loves it. He loves it. Become who you are, Louis.
The conviction, the conviction.
Tom doing his shit in this movie. He played the fuck out of Lestat. He did his thing. I was like, okay, Tom Cruise. Yes. Be Lestat. Be sexy. Sexy ass white man. He did it.
More than sexiness in the movie because I didn't get that. Like, dang, I want to sleep with him. I didn't get that from Tom Cruise in the movie versus the actor that plays Lestat in the show. It was less sex appeal, but I did enjoy watching Tom Cruise being sarcastic. He was cutthroat. It was all those things. So it was a beautiful display. So watching him is like, I agree, like, oh, he a killer. He a killer, but he's also sarcastic. So I love watching that.
Is it because he was so sharp?
Yes. Yes.
Was that the only thing? Just because he's short? Thank you, Jaconda.
I don't know that is because he was vertically challenged. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna go that far because he was vertically challenged. That it didn't give
I
that. Mm.
I tell you what, the entire time I was just looking at his teeth. It was like, what is wrong with this man's teeth? Like I don't know. Like I know that's being petty, but that's just what I was just looking at his teeth like
It wasn't a
It was a little off-putting.
yeah. What'd you say, Brittany?
was it like a prosthetic that they had in there?
Probably, but I don't know. Like I don't know, but I feel you. Like he wasn't sexy to me. Like and it was almost like he had scenes where he commanded the scene far more than Louis' character, because Louis' character in and of itself is not one that like commands a scene ever. Whether we're talking about the movie or there are times in the show where he commanded scenes, right? But in the movie, it's all about Lestat, and he does a wonderful job of showing rage, of being angry. He does a wonderful job, but at the same time, the sexiness wasn't there.
Y'all think Cruise is wait,
All right, Nicole says, in my opinion, this version captures the bratty, ruthless sides of Lestat, but I don't feel the magnetic and seductive sides of Lestat. Yes, you can put a brick on that, put it on a t-shirt, Nicole. I agree with you 100%. Okay, because with Lestat de Leoncourt in the show, panties is wet, penises are hard, doesn't matter. Everybody's excited. We all got what we came for, and I do mean that as a double entendre. Okay, so I agree with you 100%. Listen, Listen. Look, yes. And so for me, that's the sarcasm. That's he's a complete prick. Awakened soul vibes. Like he dancing with his corpse. Come on, what are you doing? But we enjoyed watching it because it was a good refrain. It
The
was.
lady has some life in her.
Look,
Yeah.
I
You
don't want to get too distracted and reference in the comments. Because look, we coming for the comments. We coming. We're gonna address them. But so as we're going through the comments, let's continue to move forward. So let's fast forward to the dark gift. Um, so how does Lestat offer Louis the dark gift? And what does that look like? And let's keep in mind, so we always talk about within when we cover the show, the levitating, which is another piece that I want to get into with the lack of sexuality in the movie versus the show. That's a big piece for me. But before I get into all of that, the dark gift. What do we think about how the dark gift was presented um, within the movie?
To me, it was somewhat lackluster how it was done. It wasn't as passionate and intimate as or seductive as what it was in the TV show. And it didn't give me everything I wanted, which was a little bit shocking to me because as a child, I saw it and I was like, wow, this movie is so scary. It's
Then
so
you watch
good.
it.
Yeah, man. And as an adult, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if I would have came back and said I wanted the gift because initially he bit him on the neck, and then he came back and was like, "Do you got to say yes or no?" And he was like, "Yes."
hmm
And
hmm
hesitate. Nah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the TV show, there was some courting going on, right? Clearly there was some courting going on. I want you. You might not know that I want you. I know that you want me. I know that you want me. Whereas in the movie, which is honestly, it's more consistent with the book. Louis, not Louis, but Lestat wanted Louis. He wanted Louis. He was following Louis. He was getting into the head of Louis. He was understanding him, and then all of a sudden he appeared. And he did what he did, and yes, according to the book, he they levitated, right? They levitated. So he knew from jump what Lestat could do. He knew from jump what Lestat could do, which in the show we didn't get to see that. Like in fact, like it was a point in the show that Louis didn't know that Lestat could levitate. Um, but in the movie, that's exactly what we saw, and it's much more consistent with the book. How Louis was turned, but he was in the book he was very seductive. Now in the book she was trying her best not to go overboard with the seduction, so in that way it is in keeping with the book. um you know you know, but it definitely was lackluster as compared to the TV show.
I agree. Watching this scene after watching the show, I was like, dang. And again, let me be clear, one of my favorite movies when it comes to vampire films ever was this movie. But oh my God, it's almost like the show has ruined me all the years later, but still not taking anything away from the time period in which the movie was made and what have you. But I wanted so much more. It's like they strategically stayed away from the sexuality between the characters. And to me, that kind of took away a little bit because it's like, it's there, but they're tap dancing around it. And so the undertones are there, but I'm like, oh God, I want so much more. And to see Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise just devour each other would have probably been too much for the 90s. But hey, whatever. We're here now. So,
You know what?
um,
That's a good segue because I remember living in the '90s when the show came out. Like everybody was just so grossed out that Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise were lovers, and yet you went to the movie knowing that they were going to be lovers. You wanted to see it. You wanted it.
You
You were
want
just mad you didn't get it because look, I think everyone was a little curious back
They
in the
acted like
90s.
it was gonna be like Brokeback Mountain in the '90s, and it was nothing like that at all.
So I held this one. Yeah, you wanted to go on. You didn't want to work. You didn't want, but that was from when we were discussing Lestat.
yes, Nicole. Yes. 2024 and beyond. Okay. Like Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. Oh, it's coming. Jermaine, take it.
Well, no. It was I had responded to her in the comments, so I told her that we are gonna do it. I'm not gonna say it on YouTube, but I'm doing. But it's coming. We're gonna we're gonna review it. Don't worry about that. Also, just in the at this.
Now that I've seen the TV show, the bedroom scene seemed kind of lackluster, but it was the 90s. You could not do this TV show in 1994, just wasn't done. Yeah, they weren't ready for it. And I respect that. And again, still one of my favorite movies. It's just dang, after being able to pull back all of that censorship and do it in the show the way in which it was done, one of my favorite shows ever.
Hey, Vodka.
Hi. All right. And so let's move forward to now we know that Louis is a vampire. Oh, wait, let's pause.
Daniel was supposed to be River Phoenix for real.
Yes. But he died. Remember.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, my. I'm loving the comments, y'all. Keep them coming. No pun intended, but all pun intended.
It's coming.
So Louis is now a vampire. So how do we feel about his transformation now that he's made his transformation? So part of what I'm thinking is his continuing to being tortured, right? And having this kind of, I don't want to say holier than thou attitude, but the way he feels about human life versus his maker.
Hmm. Well, I like how Lestat was showing Louis how to survive versus in the TV show he didn't really show him that there's an option in terms, I don't remember that at least, in terms of killing animals. And so Louis is killing the Pomeranians.
Peter is coming for this show, by the way. Peter is coming. You done kill some Pomeranians on TV. We're not okay with this.
And the old lady's thinking that he's trying to be with her, and he killing the old lady's dog. That was hilarious. The stat was like, "Now look, motherfucker, you need to eat people. You need to eat people. It's time. Okay, now shit, they are just food for us." And then he gets to the point when Tandy Newton, I loved her character, when Tandy Newton was in it, and she was to tell her, "I love you, Master. I love you." And Master looking at her like, "You looking a little delicioso." And she thinking he trying to love on her, kissing her wrist. Nah, he's licking that wrist, girl. That's an appetizer. Okay, you looking scrumdiddlyumptious over there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading comments, y'all. I'm sorry. So look, what was since you mentioned Tandy Newton, what what happened in the book was I always want to say Lestat. Louis used to have sex with his slaves.
Mm.
He used to have sex with his slaves, but the slaves didn't mind because of his approach. There were certain slaves that he liked, and he didn't rape them. He just went to them, and they gave themselves. At least that's the way that she wrote it. Now, is that what really happened or what would have happened? We don't know. But the way in which she wrote it, and I'm just assuming that they were like, nah, we don't want to go down that road. But the movie does touch upon that, and that was very significant because it was because his approach was so light that the slaves had his back. And I think that's a significant point to make. They didn't want to kill him. They knew that something was wrong with him because of Lestat, right? And they were like, as slaves, they were trying to figure out like how can we get rid of that one while keeping this one, or like what can we do? You know what I'm saying? Like that was important to them.
She addressed it. She addressed it in a monologue. She was like, well, or dialogue or whatever. She was like, hey, you don't visit the slave quarters as often. Like we miss you. And I think that it's this person. They addressed it. So I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. After watching the show, the movie doesn't hit as hard. In my head, I was just thinking, where's the melanin? LMAO. Look, look. I can't see. It's cut off a little bit on my screen.
No, that's it. All I have to do is follow the trail of rats.
All
Yeah,
you light skinned black women in this.
yeah, yeah.
That's what you saw as food.
So you know what? I went back in anticipation of doing this because I knew that we were going to cover this. I went back and I reread the book. There is a passing uh that there's a phrase that Anne Rice has in there, and she made mention of the fact that Louis that we saw in this movie was supposed to be a Creole.
Well, he referred to himself as a Creole in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
What's the difference between a white Creole and a Cajun?
So, in order to be considered a Creole, like a Creole, you actually have to have some African blood in you.
Right.
You have to have some African blood in you, and you then must speak English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, yada 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 yada. So
Okay.
that's the only those are the only two requirements: black blood and speaking the language.
And so, in essence, a white Creole is an oxymoron. Can't be. That's just me. That's just me.
It just it maybe he was an octo what you call that
Octoroon,
octoroon.
octoroon,
Yeah, yeah.
or passe blanc.
Mm-hmm.
Say
I,
What'd you say, Brittany?
passe blanc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. White friends.
so I don't want to graze over this part before we move into them creating Claudia, but I did want to ask the question because one of our favorite characters is Daniel Malloy. You gotta love Daniel. So how do we feel about the chemistry and what we've seen in the movie between Louis and Daniel to this point? Is there
What,
chemistry there?
what was the actor's name that played Daniel?
Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. That motherfucker. He played it. I think he played it well. I don't think he played it as good as Daniel Malloy's character in the TV show, but I do think he played it well for the '90s, where he was the shocked reporter. But it's something about his voice that's a little bit annoying. It's a little bit like nails on the chalkboard. It's something about his voice that just annoyed me a little bit. But other than that, I think he did a phenomenal job where he acted shocked. But you didn't really see him that much.
And that's the difference for me.
You know
I
what I mean?
feel like Daniel Malloy in the show, you saw him, he made enough of a impression on you to where you want more of him versus or juxtaposed to the movie. It's like, oh, okay, I could have crackers with my gumbo or I could not. Either way, it's gonna be fine. But at the same time, when we do see him, like he wasn't a bad actor for this movie. I didn't hate his presence there. It's just again juxtaposed to the one in the show. We need to see him. We need him as often as possible. Very, 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 very important role.
I think it is a very important role too.
So I'm gonna say this. As a gay man who lived in the 90s, Christian Slater was significant in that role. In that he was the only reason that I really wanted to see that movie. It wasn't
Okay.
it wasn't Brad Pitt. It wasn't what's his name? Tom Cruise. It was Christian Slater. He was the one. Cause I just and I look. Let me tell you something. When he I can't do this because this is in my head. When he flicked that hair back when he was smoking that cigarette, I said, "Oh Jesus, Jesus." Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
You mind if I smoke my cigarette? You're not gonna get cancer and die anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
You want some of these comments because they coming in.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's see. I'm trying to see what was the last one. Uh,
Oh yes. Oh yes. I 100% believe that he did fall in
You
love
know
with
he,
New Orleans after the
you know he
what?
likes black women. You can just look at Brad Pitt and tell he date black women.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Creoles are native black indigenous. Cajuns were of French descent, but in 1994 they wouldn't put a black actor in that role. That's what's so great about the TV show.
Yes.
Come on. They weren't ready for that. Not the current laughing. Okay. All right. So let's fast forward a little bit to the creation of Claudia. In the show, we see something a little bit different. In the movie, okay, I'm gonna pull back. I want to know your thoughts about Claudia's creation.
I want to hear from Brittany because I'm going to talk about the book. So I want to hear from Brittany because it's gonna.
Okay. So Lydia's creation. So at this point, Louis is wanting to leave Lestat. He's walking through the quarter and he sees that the men with the mask are there because of plague. He's like, "Don't go that way. It's plague." And so he goes that way anyway because ain't shit gonna happen to him. He a vampire. He dead already. So he walking through, and as he walks through, he sees a little girl, and he walks into the house and sees the little girl there with her mom dead, and she's all dirty and dreary looking, and he's hungry, and he bites she's like, "My mom will wake mama up," and he bites down on her neck, and that's when Lestat comes in and dances with the mom and says, "Oh, this old girl got some life in her yet," and then and then Louis gets mad because he realizes he bit her and he thinks he killed her. And that's when he just runs out. And Lestat brings her home as a gift to say, "This is our daughter," which is totally different than the TV show. Totally different. Because Louis brings her home and says, "Turner, because I need this. We need this." And so Lestat in the TV show, I'm sorry, Lestat in the movie turns Claudia in order to keep Louis from leaving him.
So the movie is much more consistent with the book. So what we see in that scene is much more consistent. Yeah, there's no other way to say it, except that Claudia's mom in the book hadn't yet died. She hadn't yet died. In the book, I don't remember. I think it was Lestat was the one who kills her because he was just like, "There's no point. Let's put her out of her misery." So he kills her. So that's what happens in the book, which is part and parcel what leads. I don't remember at what point. I might be getting the timeline a little confused, but at some point that's what led Louis to bite Claudia. And yes, in the book, he runs away as well. He comes home with Claudia, and he said, you know, this is our daughter. This is my daughter. This is our daughter. This is your daughter. All that other good stuff. This is our family. That kind of stuff. So that it was much more consistent. There was, yes, the part where he was dancing with the mom. That's a creation of the movie. I think that it was needed in that moment because for 1990, well, in the 90s, that was kind of macabre. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of dark, and so they needed something to kind of lighten the mood as well. Because just watching Louis consistently, that's depressing. And so they needed that moment in the movie. My thoughts.
I just love hearing y'all. So for me, I'm like, okay, again, juxtaposing it from the show to the movie to the book. I'm like, okay, you decided that you were going to trap Louis. Is how I'm seeing it versus the other way around. Like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make her because I'm gonna keep you around. I know that you feel guilty about feeding on her. And so I'm not going to kill her. I'm going to keep her alive. And I know that you are trying to leave me. You're not going anywhere. I know you're not going anywhere. If I keep her alive, Jermaine, you have something.
No, it was just something came to me. Louis thought that there was a point where he thought he made Claudia. There was a point in the book where he thought he had actually made Claudia, but he left too soon to figure that out. He learns at some point that it was actually Lestat. But yes, please continue. I'm sorry, it was just something that I
You know
forgot.
that I can ramble on for hours. I don't want to get trapped there because we do have some other places that we want to go with this. But oh my goodness. It says, and so did Jacob Anderson, fell in love with New Orleans too. You listen, if you've ever visited New Orleans, you're gonna either love it or hate it. There's no middle ground, no gray area. Would you say, Britt?
I said I go one to two times a month. I love New Orleans.
But yes, 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 yes. There's so much there. Um, so fast forward, Claudia is now here. Can we speak to how both Louis and Lestat respond to Claudia as a vampire child?
Yes. So Louis, well, let's go to Lestat first in the movie. Lestat treats her like a fledgling. He's like, "You are the ultimate killer. I am going to teach you how to charm and how to culture yourself and how to be the ultimate killer." While Louis treated her like a little girl and dolled all his love and affection on her. And the same was for the TV show.
Yeah,
And they killed whole families.
yeah. It was and I said it in the when we were covering the TV show. Louis was the mom and Lestat was the dad. It was almost like Lestat had found his tomboy girl, and he wanted to teach her how to play football and baseball and basketball. Like, come on, let's go, let's do this. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna do all the good stuff that I could do with a son, but I got this tomboy for a daughter, and so we gonna do it. And so they had fun together. Um, she just happened, as it relates to the movie, in a lot of ways, the movie showed her to be much more Lestat's child than Louis' child.
Yes, agree.
To me, I loved watching it. It was like that was his protege, and she was willing. And for me, that was the biggest part. She was willing. So she's young, she's hungry, even down to when he was the transition was happening. What Kirsten Dunst says, I want more. I want more. And for me, that was more than just what was stated within that scene. I want more. Not just I want more blood, but I want more. I want to know more. I want to do more. I want to be more. And that was canvas that Lestat needed to just paint himself all over the place. And so I found that absolutely beautiful. And perhaps I'm reading way more into it than I should, but I thought that was beautiful. For me, that just awakened something in Lestat, not just in Claudia. And so I loved that piece. Like, she was definitely his fledgling or what have you, but she was willing. You didn't get the resistance that you got from Louis. You didn't get the woe is me. I created you, and you are okay with being this apex predator. All of these things that you are, you just want to know more about your being, and you're fine with that. So you didn't get the resistance that you got from Louis. You didn't want to feed on rats. You didn't want to eat animals. You are okay with drinking from the vein of humans. And so I feel like that gave Lestat a hard on, like a new zeal, a new zest for living as a vampire, to have this being that you created as your fledgling want to know and to be all of these things. So I thought that that was absolutely beautiful, which for me was consistent, with the show. Claudia was a beast. She was a monster. She was okay with being those things. The biggest problem was Mama Lou. It was. It was Mama Lou. Mama Lou was the biggest problem with that. So I loved watching Lestat get excited um about having um Claudia as his fledgling. All right. So uh let's fast forward to Claudia is kind of coming into her own. We're not going to dive too deep into Claudia because that's going to be for another show. But how do we feel about Claudia being dissatisfied and them turning on Lestat, um, and ultimately trying to kill Lestat? How Louis handles that piece.
It was really
Well,
shocking for him. Go ahead, go ahead.
no, I guess what I was going to say. This is another situation in which it looks like the show kind of gave us a little bit more. It allowed us to see the evolution of the relationship between all of those three characters, and how and why Claudia was able to come between Louis and Lestat, and it made what we saw on the television show. It made it seem so real, and it made sense. Whereas here, it was all about Claudia. It was all about what Claudia wanted, and yes, she happened to know how Louis felt, because it was clear that Louis just thought that Lestat was just going to kill everybody, and that was it. That was it. Like that was all that we saw in the movie, right? It wasn't this betrayal that we saw, right? Because in the TV show we saw a betrayal, and we saw just thing after thing after thing after thing in which Louis was able to point to and say, this is why I wanted and needed to get away from Lestat. Whereas in the movie, it was all about Claudia. It was all about Claudia's needs, and because Claudia needs this is what we're going to do. And so that's what I saw when I looked at this movie.
I totally agree with that. Ooh, Bo. Y'all, my baby sound like he got COPD.
Okay. So so how does Louis respond to Lestat's death?
Oh, sorry. Bo, you okay?
How does Louis respond to Lestat's death in the
Yeah.
movie? And y'all gotta I did see the movie like maybe about 2 weeks ago, but on today I fell asleep twice trying to watch this movie, and I just couldn't get through it. I could not get through it. Based on my memory, and y'all help me out here. Based on my memory, it was just kind of like I don't even remember.
Okay, let me talk
I don't
about it.
remember.
I
So
got you.
and so it's not just you having seen it 2 weeks ago. It's not just that. He's sitting up there laughing. It's not just that. It went differently than it did in the show. And so to me, it was just kind of like, okay. Claudia has orchestrated this. Let's just keep going. Whatever it is that we have gotten ourselves into, we're going to just keep it moving, right?
Yeah,
And I
very
have
fast.
time, huh?
It was very fast.
It was. It was very fast. Like, okay, I don't have time to process. I don't have time to get into all the logistics of it. My whole thing is to just protect Claudia and to just keep it moving. And we're gonna go on. So we didn't get to delve very deeply into Louis' emotions at that point because it's like, okay, you've done something that you should not have done. We didn't discuss this. You acted unilaterally, but okay, here we are now. We're gonna keep it moving. And so hey, they go on, and I mean, you watch this little girl.
But
This
like
little
for
girl,
real, how did they kill him?
Claudia, she offered up the set of twins to him, but there was something in the twins' blood, and then so it weakened him. And then Claudia, with her little bitty self, slit his throat up to the point to where his blood is leaking out all over the place. And she's like, "Pick me up, Louis." He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna pick you up." And so the blood doesn't get on your shoes. So it's like Claudia is running the show, and for me, that remains consistent from the movie to the show because, say, Britt.
That's that little mastermind.
Yes, a little mastermind. Like, okay, you can't think clearly. Don't worry about it. I'll get in the driver's seat. I got it. Don't worry about it. Hey, pick me up. I don't want to get blood on my shoes. So it's like Louis at this point is a flunky. You,
So you know what it has me thinking. So I'm going to assume that in Anne Rice's mind, she was Louis, and when her daughter died, obviously her daughter is Claudia, and Lestat is the dad, right? What I'm thinking she is actually saying, this is just my thoughts. I don't know if this is true or not. What I was thinking she was actually saying was her husband her husband didn't process Claudia's death in the same way that she had. She grieved, she was emotional about it, but I think what was actually happening, and I think the television show does an excellent job at explaining. I think what was happening was, as the husband, as the father, I think he saw that his wife was so emotional, and so somebody had to be strong in that moment. And so he didn't allow himself to process because he was carrying now. Not only was he thinking about the loss of his daughter, but he was also trying to help his wife at the same time. And that's what I'm thinking actually happened as she was writing this book. Those are just my thoughts. I'm sorry to get so up here with it, but
You're
no,
fine.
love that because that's the beauty of having a trifecta, of watching the show, watching the movie, reading the book. So we love that. We love to see it. Oh, trifecta. Look at me using those words.
let me look that up real quick.
All right. So let's continue so we can tie this in a bow. All right, so as we move on, Lestat is to what they think now is dead after Claudia slits his throat. Um, they decide to go on and go to Paris. They go to Paris. So how do we feel about Armand and
Mm,
Louis once they arrive in Paris?
girl, Santiago with his weird ass was like doing this, playing games with him, and here go Armand in the background. Stop.
Antonio Banderas. Oh, I would
That's a
just love to see that
that's it.
Antonio
Yeah,
Bear.
they done put Antonio Banderas in a whole 1B lace front, bitch. They are not even.
Not one place front. I look you and I'm saying Antonio Bear ass. Okay, where was the bear ass? Because he was
Man,
fine.
that's a fine motherfucker
That's
right there.
Mexico, Antonio.
That's a fine motherfucker right there.
That
They,
wig. Yes, not the 1B lace front.
okay, straight Cambodian.
Mm-hmm.
That's
you, You know what? When I watched this movie back in the 90s, I was like, hold up, wait a minute. They got Brad Pitt, they got Tom Cruise, they got Christian Slater. And now they giving me this sexy man with this sexy accent. I was like, oh, I couldn't watch. And I watched it in my dorm, and there was a whole bunch of people in my dorm. I had to get up and go. Because
I bet you did. I just wanted the homoerotica undertones weren't enough for me. I needed to be an overtone. I needed to be offensive. I needed y'all to want to pull this shit from the movies because y'all went too far with this. That's what I wanted. I didn't get it, but it's okay because here we are decades later.
you know what?
Mm, 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 mm.
With CGI, I wonder if these actors could remake this movie.
Yes, that's what I was just thinking. The same actors.
Mm,
Could
Pussy.
you imagine the things that they would do?
Oh, the things that I would love to watch them do.
No, but you did ask about Santiago. It was significant for me because that was the moment where Louis calls him a buffoon, right?
'Cause he was a
Um,
crook.
and it made a whole lot more sense in the movie when he uses the word buffoon, because to him he was just like, you're just mimicking me. You're just copying everything that I do. Like, what are you? Are you a revenant? Are you like what kind of thought do you have? I traveled all the way over here to learn from you, and all you're doing is just copying everything that I do. That is why Louis calls him a buffoon. Now I understand like how and why he did it in the television show, but there was some lag time between when Louis did it and what he said. Well, when Louis, like pulled his tongue out, and when Santiago was mimicking him, there was some lag time, and so it didn't make sense. But in the movie, it made a whole lot of sense as to why he would call him a buffoon in that moment.
Mm, mm, mm.
100% phone. You doing parlor tricks and shit. Don't nobody got time for that. Like, I honestly respected Santiago more in the show. Because
Me
that clown
too.
that was in the movie, it was like,
He
you
wasn't even
mirroring? Like, what are you doing? Stop. It's weird. I don't like it.
goofy.
All right, guys. Whew. Um, so let's fast forward to we know that Claudia is ultimately an abomination. And so they do not want Claudia to exist. The Parisian vampires, I mean. And so um how does Louis respond to Claudia's execution and or death
Mm.
in the movie?
One more time, what's that question?
So we know that Claudia is an abomination. So how does Louis respond to Claudia's execution? Some of it is consistent with the show, with how Louis responds. So how does Louis respond since we're well, and I guess because we're covering Louis and Lestat, how do either respond to Claudia's execution?
Well, Louis gets upset, and he's Armand. As Armand is saving Louis, Louis is like, "Where is Claudia? Let's go get Claudia." And Armand is like, "I can't. I can only save one." And that's similar to the show where Armand is like, "I can only save you." Now I don't remember Lestat in this part.
He wasn't
He
necessarily
wasn't.
in a scene, but just like kind of the aftermath, kind of later on.
Mhm. We didn't see Lestat again until like the very very end when he meets up with Daniel.
Yeah, because I don't remember him talking about Claudia.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a departure from the book. It was a departure from the book. But the movie, in and of itself, it made Armand seem kind of like someone that Louis could depend on, that someone who had his back. But at the same time, as I was watching, I do remember thinking all the way back in the 90s, dude, if you're so much powerful, and you forget being powerful. You're the leader. You could have stopped all of that from happening. That part didn't make sense to me. All the way back in the 90s, it just didn't. Having read the book, it made a whole lot more sense because I watched the movie first, then the book, then the TV show. And so it was confusing, but it did make Armand the character seem much more sympathetic.
Agreed. So for me, I love how Louis, like, it remained consistent with him basically setting everything on fire. He did not handle it well with Claudia being executed, and he had a plan in place. And so it went fairly quickly. I do love how they painted a picture more vividly in the show than they
Mm,
did in the movie, with how he responded to his revenge on the coven. And we'll get into the coven thing a little bit later on another show at another time. Hopefully you guys will tune in. But I did appreciate that. And so watching it, it was like we got to see Louis not as much in a state of mania, but we did get to see him enacting his revenge, which I appreciated. It was really, really amazing to watch him set everything on fire. Wanted a little bit more between him and the Santiago scene, and I got it in the show. Couldn't get as much of it in the movie, but it was still enough to where, like, okay, I done sliced and diced you. You over with. I appreciated that. Um, and even down to Claudia's execution. It was less sexualized than the show and more like a mother daughter kind of thing. And I got the nurturing that I need, and I was looking more of a mother than a companion as far as it pertains to her wanting something sexualized. So, not saying that the movie did a bad job because that is something she needed as well. But I did appreciate it in the show to where they showed, okay, you've been a vampire for decades and you're not a 5, 10-year-old little girl. You're a woman with desires and needs. So it's quite a bit different, but I appreciated both.
hmm hmm And so Nicole says, I do have to say that Kirsten Dunst as Claudia is unmatched. I love Delaney and Bailey, but movie Claudia brought book Claudia to life. What are your thoughts about that? I'm sorry, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do.
No, you are doing everything you're supposed to do. As far as I'm concerned, you could do no wrong. So personally, I appreciated um book Claudia bringing to life. Look, she's bratty. She's significantly younger in the movie. Let's go there. In the movie, she's way younger. I think in the book she was maybe 4 or 5 years old. So even in the movie, she wasn't 4 or 5, but she was still significantly younger than she was in the show. And so that makes a world of a difference, right? And so we show her the movie shows her going through these range of emotions as a kid to a young adult. And so Kirsten Dunst, she's spazzing out. She's cutting off her hair. Hey, this is who I want. Give her to me. You owe me that. She's spazzing.
mhm.
I loved it. I love to watch it. I think for the 90s, what she brought to this character was absolutely phenomenal. I appreciated it. And it is completely different than what we see with decades of development and camera tricks and technology advancements. What she brought to that role in the 90s was extraordinary. I agree.
I agree with you, Elia. Yes, it was. It was phenomenal, and she's such a young actor at that age, and the range that she had was just oh, great actress, great actress. She did an amazing role, and she played that role to the T. She's playing against Brad Pitt, um, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, and she had to be what, between 9 and 11 when she played that.
I don't know her exact age, but
That is crazy. Can you imagine being a young girl having to play that role? with
She killed
those
it.
major actors. She killed it.
She killed it.
Who, in your opinion, who did the best job with acting out of all of these characters that we're talking about? Who did the best job?
TV show or movie?
The movie, just the movie, just the movie.
I'd have to say Brad Pitt. For me personally, Brad Pitt.
I'm gonna say Claudia.
Really?
I'm gonna say Claudia.
Yeah, even I would say Claudia. I don't think that the character, the Louis character, is rich depth with range. You know what I'm saying? Just the way that she wrote it's one note, kind of monotone. Whereas with Lestat or Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst, and even Antonio Banderas with Armand, all of those characters are one note. They're the same. They're static all throughout. Whereas with Kirsten Dunst, her character, she had to do so much. She had to do so much, and to be so young, she kind of stole the show.
Yes, I agree. Like for me, the Claudia's character did the best for acting. It's such a range, and just piggybacking on Jermaine, you're responsible for so much. You're a child, you're an adult, you're a vampire. It's not a dichotomy, it's not a trichotomy. Like there's so many different things that you're having to navigate. Being an orphan, and then being a vampire, then being a sexual being. There's so many different things that she's having to navigate. And so I feel like she did an amazing job displaying that. I do. I think that was one of Kirsten Dunst's honestly best roles for me.
Yeah.
So Awakened Soul Vibe says I read Claudia's comic book edition of her point of view, and she spoke like Louis was her lover. At times, it was so cringe. In the book as well, both Louis and Claudia refer to each other as each other's lover.
And then in the
That's
Yeah.
book, she was significantly younger, so I guess that would be extremely cringe. Awakened Soul Vibe.
Not sexual lovers. And I remember, like in the book, in Interview with the Vampire, when they use the word lover or paramour, it wasn't sexualized. It was you just got to think about it in this way. But lover meant something like I'm pouring all of my love into you or into this.
okay.
Deep.
Because
Mhm,
otherwise, I was like, oh man, that's sick.
mhm, mhm,
That's sick
mhm.
puppy.
All right, so last point of reference, our Belle, our love, New Orleans. So in the end, we see we brought it back to New Orleans. Louis returns. That's where Lestat has kind of been holded up. How do we feel about how things are in the end with Lestat being in New Orleans and Louis showing up to New Orleans?
I kind of think that was closure for Louis. That was his time to have peace with what happened with him and Lestat, and the bonnet to end. And to see Lestat and Louis to see Lestat in the state that he was at, he seemed like he had more pity for him because Lestat was stuck in the 1800s and he wasn't able to grow with the times. And he was nervous about the helicopter lights and he was nervous about the loud noises. And it was just interesting to see how Louis was able to change with the times.
Hmm. Yeah, great points. Great points. Yeah, to borrow a phrase from Brittany, I agree with everything that Brittany just said. Yeah, because I wouldn't have been able. I would have been like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But no, Brittany, your points were on point. I love
Thank you.
Your points were on point.
Yeah.
And so we know, okay, I'm a Louisiana native, and so is Jermaine, and so is Brittany. So to bring it back to New Orleans, after all the turmoil, all the things have happened, to me, I feel like it was just I can't say a family reunion, but it was an amazing culmination for me because New Orleans is a representation of so many different things: trauma, family, home, all those different things, transformation.
Mm.
I and because of my poetic brain, I'm thinking, wow, what better place to bring the closing of the movie to, except for the last part where we see with not Brad Pitt, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise and Christian Slater in the car. We're gonna move past that. But for the most part, the really kind of tying everything in a bow at the end of the movie, bringing it to New Orleans to me was everything because it's everything. It literally is everything. It's the pain, it's the transformation, it's all the things. And to put a stamp and put New Orleans on that, to me, it was beautiful. It was very poetic. And so seeing Lestat in not his best light, he was a very attractive being. But in New Orleans, with everything falling apart, he didn't look great. He didn't look awesome. He was still there. And so to have Louis meet him there, evolved, hair flowing. Louis is, let's be clear, Louis was looking very scrum-delicious in his scene.
Mm.
But that didn't look that great. However, watching it to me was beautiful. It was because you have Lestat that is honestly, this is your creator. This is him. He has all these things. He's kind of humbled in a sense when you see this scene. But you have Louis that has evolved. He's seen some things, he's done some things, so he's learned some things. The dark gift really is a gift for him at this point. And so watching them bring it back to New Orleans for me was everything. It remained consistent in the show, it remained consistent in the movie, the book, all the things for me. Like I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so I'm gonna be quiet right there.
No, that was good, girl.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Loved it. You got me motivated.
I got
You see, I can find one.
Y'all are so funny.
I got
Um,
nothing.
no, so no more comments. Nobody has comment. Nobody has anything
No,
to say. I'm sorry.
No, no,
All
no.
right.
I'm just looking forward to us covering Interview with the Vampire. Same movie, but this time we're gonna be talking about what is it? Claudia and the
Claudia and the
Coven.
Coven.
Hmm. Hmm.
Claudia and the
Hmm.
Coven.
And when are we gonna do this?
And so today is Sunday. We're gonna say by next Sunday, y'all are gonna be hearing from us again, talking about the things that we love to talk about. Interview with the Vampire being right at the helm. What is your rate from 1 through 5 of the show? I mean, of the movie, Awaken Soul Vibes.
So
what are you doing it to?
so are we okay? So Awaken Soul Vibes. Are we just doing the movie, 1 through 5, and I'm assuming 5 is the better number. If it's just the movie, yep, movie. So oh Lord Jesus. All
Yeah.
right. So let me say this. Going back to the 1990s, going back to the 1990s, putting myself in that time frame, it would have been a 5. It would have been a 5 for me. Watching it today, having had how you say that grammatically, having watched having watched 2 seasons of the series, I would give it a 2. It looked like a cheap movie
Mm,
Yeah.
comparatively.
that's fair. Brittany, I saw Brittany holding up a big strong 5.
Yeah, but that was 90s.
Yeah. But for me, 90s would have been a 4. And let's be clear, that was my one of my favorite movies. To me, it would have still been a 4 as one of my favorite strong movies. And a 4 because they tiptoed around the sexuality of it. And to me, that's a big piece. When I look at vampires, I think fluid, I think sexual, and there was no sex. Let's just think about it. Yeah, they hinted around at it with Louis and the prostitutes and stuff like that. But for the most part, there were no sexual overtones. Everything was undertones. It was very, very, very covert. And so That's for me, even in the 90s, was a 4. Um, it would be a 5 had they turned up the sexuality of it a bit, because vampires to me are sexual beings. They are very sexual, very fluid. Like, that's a big thing to what attracted me to vampires. Not it was
It,
so mayonnaise. It was like seriously, and not like actually acting like I'm some sexual deviant. I don't want to put myself out there like that, but like seriously, like I need a little more. These are vampires. Like I love that it was star studded with with Slater, with Pitt, with with Cruz. That's great and everything, but y'all stripped away the essence of vampires. Like, come on.
You know what they could have done was they could have shown Brad Pitt having sex with the as you call them, the ladies of the night, the whores.
Yeah,
They could have shown that.
and they
yeah,
did not.
They could have done that.
And they did not.
Mhm.
They did
Mhm.
not. But listen, guys, we're coming for you.
I
And
will say, I will say one thing though. That there was a scene at the very end between Brad Pitt and Armand got like this close, and I was like, they're gonna kiss. I was like,
nope,
they're gonna kiss. Oh Lord, they're gonna kiss. I
nope,
was dying inside. I couldn't express myself in the 90s. I couldn't express myself, you know. But it didn't happen.
he did not.
Didn't happen.
Cock
mm.
teases. Okay, cock teases. But but hey, we still appreciate it for what it was. I still feel like it's one of my favorite movies of all time, especially when it comes to vampires. But listen, guys, we are coming back at you. We coming for your throat. We'll be covering Claudia and the Coven next. Right there, right there, right there.
Remember
And
that, Brittany?
I love the smacking. That smacking sounds so sexy. Yay. And so, look, thank y'all for joining the live. We live, we thrive. All of these fang bangers, we love it. Thank y'all for coming to watch. And so we'll be back. We'll be back with more because we're not letting this go. There's so much to uncover in this realm, and we need y'all right here with us. So please come back. Thank you for joining the live. Come back, watch the replay, share it with a friend, a first cousin, a baby cousin, whatever. We here. We love to have y'all.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Y'all have a good one.